Hello! Welcome to your Big Brother Plays. I'm Bez, pronouns he, they, who doesn't love horror games, right? I myself have a strange relationship with the genre, because on one hand, games like Lone Survivor I really like quite a bit. But on the other hand, environmental horror like Five Nights at Freddy's can scare the crap out of me. But when I saw a tome that claimed to mix horror and romance, I knew I had to try it. That brings us to Fragment. Fragment is a romance game by Starfield Gaming. It's about Zani Green, an 18-year-old whose world turned upside down 10 years ago when her mother died in a car accident. And things are about to change for her once again when her father decides to reveal some family secrets to her. It's quite an interesting premise, and the game goes in some wild directions with it. The first book, called Fantasy Fragments, has already been released, and the developers have generously provided me with a reviewed copy. So I'm really excited to check out this game with you today. But before we check out the story, I want to show you some of the game's features. First, there's partial voice acting for all the major characters, which is really nice. The performances are all great. Next, the UI looks spectacular, and I especially love the phone you eventually get. You can use it to check social media, read the glossary you accumulate over the game, and check your inner psyche, which is basically the Zani you built thanks to the choices you made. Though I can't exactly tell what inner psyche affects in the game, I know it changes the dialogue or something, but I don't really know. I'm really curious to see if you have completely different inner psyche, how things play out. Do you have completely different things to say than if you have a different psyche? That makes me really curious. I want to kind of play more and experiment with it and see what happens. And now we're going to start into spoiler territory. But just a heads up before we begin, this video will spoil the common route as well as both routes in book 1, Clive's route, and Kay's route. I also had to include a trigger warning because we will be discussing things like suicidal thoughts, depression, PTSD, full list here of the things I'm going to discuss with you today. And this game is also not recommended for people under the age of 12. If they're okay with that, we'll continue, but if you're not okay with that, you just want to see my final thoughts, here's the time code to skip to. Alright, let's do this. In the common round of the game, Zani discovers that she's not a human being, but a mutant, like her mother was. Because of this, she has the power to sense people's hearts, which you can do through a minigame where you have to click on, hearts as fast as you can. Also, here's a pro gamer tip for you if you're having trouble with it. Go to the options menu, enter window mode, and shrink the window to a smaller size. This will make the gaps between your hearts smaller and making them easier to click on. Nifty, right? But back to the story. Her father introduced her to the People's Juicelets who gather information on the experiment that made the mutants years ago. These people are Dexter and Kay, and over time, Zani befriends Kay as he visits her every night to say hello, and he brings her out of her shell. But eventually, Kay goes missing. One night, just before her father wants her to move away for her own safety, Zani goes out to find him, but instead, she gets herself found and stabbed by Jasper, who's a man her father warned her not to kill her. A person Zani met earlier that day, Clive, saves her life by finding her, and she wakes up in a hospital. That ends the common route, and brings us to the point where we select which book to choose. Obviously only book 1 is out right now, so we have to pick that one. There are 2 love interests in book 1, Kay and Clive. Kay has to be my favorite, and is actually blind, which I haven't seen before in a tome. It's great to have a disabled love interest, that's really awesome. Clive is nice too. He's this bumbling doofus who's shy and clumsy with words. He wants to run a coffee shop, and he likes to draw, and I love him. But the platonic relationships Zani has are just as important. Her connection with her father, Gray, is especially vital. It starts out as rather unhealthy, a broken relationship that has left both of them divided, but my intervention brought them back together in a better place, which is really nice to see develop. There are also these little "your father appreciated that" notifications along the way that really remind you of Telltale games. Zani's relationship with her friend Shannon is also really nice to see. My understanding is that it can become romantic in book 2, but stays platonic in book 1. In all, it's good to have friends. Alright, I know there was a spoiler warning earlier, but I just want to emphasize again that I'm going to be spoiling everything in book 1. So if you want to skip it in my final thoughts, go here. Otherwise, we'll continue on and, see what I think of it. Now Zani is living with her former babysitter Lana in a new town. She's still overcoming PTSD from being stabbed in the stomach by a man who wants to kill her, and that's on top of her mother's death, which she's still not quite over. As someone with PTSD, I empathize. Here is where Kay's route begins. As she tries to look for him, as he has appeared a few times in her dreams, a goddess named Shay gets in contact with Zani to help bring him back to the mortal realm. It's revealed that Kay was created from Jasper and Clive, who are basically spin-offs of the same person who wants to deviate from himself, and it sounds really weird when I say it out loud, doesn't it? Regardless, to bring him back, we need to collect 5 heart fragments and merge Clive and Jasper together to make Kay. We manage to collect the 5 fragments and bring Kay back, but Kay's memory is basically gone. Zani works with Kay to bring it back. He loves being around her and wants to be with her always, but at the same time he feels like a burden to her for needing help. It's my personal headcanon that Kay is suicidal and struggles with depression. Just look at some of these lines. It also turns out that he's living with both Jasper and Clive's memories, which is a struggle for him. But by supporting him through this change, I was able to help him through. In my ending, Brighter Days, he decided to go to therapy, and Zani followed his lead to help herself to her trauma as well. He confesses his love to her and the two kiss. Then they go to Shannon's graduation party together. I thought this part was pretty interesting, but my biggest complaint is that Kay is really clinging to Zani in an unhealthy way, and that's not good. And also, like, what's the relationship going to be like in the future if Kay keeps clinging to her like this? But I'm also hopeful that things are going to turn out alright, so, take that as you will. Now for the Clive route. This one is basically the opposite of Kay's route, because instead of finding the fragments, Zani can't find them at all aside from one of them. The fact that Clive, Jasper, and Kay are all the same person is pretty much the same, but things are done a little differently. First, Kay doesn't really make much of an appearance, aside from some nightmares of Zani's. Next, it turns out Clive has been working with Jasper because Clive thought Jasper was his older brother, and that Jasper was an alter ego of Clive or something. It's a bit confusing, but the point of it all is that Clive was working with Jasper but eventually stopped. However, Jasper poisoned Clive with quote-unquote medicine to suppress Clive's superpowers. Eventually Clive stopped taking the medicine to help stop Jasper from killing Zani, and I promise this all makes a lot more sense in context. Anyway, in the My True Home ending, Clive leaves to stop Jasper, I think? But he eventually comes back, much to Zani's joy and relief, and he confesses his love to her. The two kiss, and then go to Shannon's graduation party together. Shannon's graduation party seems to be the glue that ties the end of the stories together, which is pretty neat. Shannon's a great friend. This path is pretty cool too, though it does get kind of harder to follow than Kay's route in my opinion, because there's so many twists and turns in this one. I still liked it though, I still thought it was interesting. And I'm really curious where the other books are going to go, because book 1 had some really interesting territory, so I'm like, what on earth is the game going to explore next? It already explored so many interesting things. So I'm really curious to see what happens next. There's some stuff I didn't really have space to mention yet, like Shannon's boyfriend, eventually ex-boyfriend, Dustin. I wonder how he'll play into book 2 when Shannon's story gets more focused. And a strange dream / flashback Johnny has concerning Clive's brother. And the fact that there's a band in the game called the Fractured Hearts. Oh yeah, and also in both routes there's a mysterious individual named Inigo who approaches Zani in her dreams, so he's there too, I guess? Kinda curious what role he'll play in the stories. Overall, I think it's a really interesting game. I think, you know what? I think it would actually make a great introduction for someone going into psychological horror games. Because it's not overly scary, it's not overly terrifying, but it still has its jump scare moments, like little doses of jump scares in there. I think it'd be a great introduction to someone wanting to get into horror games, because it's not too scary, it's not too terrifying. It's just like a little bit of scary, just a little poke of scary, and I think that's great. I think it would make a great intro. You can buy Heart Fragment on Steam or itch.io, or donate to developers Ko-Fi. I think this game is pretty cool, and for $9.99 it is a steal. Unfortunately, not everyone seems to agree with me, as piracy has already hit Heart Fragment. Literally a day after this game came out, it had been uploaded to a website for free. The dev made a Twitter thread about this, and as a game creator myself, this hurts my soul, because I know that this stuff directly hurts independent devs. So, here's what I'm proposing. If you, the person watching this right now, would like to play Heart Fragment but would not otherwise be able to play without piracy, I will buy you a copy of this game. Think I'm joking? I'm simply serious here. If you want this game, message me on Twitter at Naomi Norbez, or email me at mninorbez@gmail.com or yourregularplays@gmail.com, and I will buy you this game, because I want to support this dev, and that's way better than piracy. So seriously, if you want this game but otherwise could not afford it, or you would not be able to play without piracy for whatever reason, I don't care what reason it is, let me know and I will buy you this game. And you could be watching this video 5 years after it's published for all I care. You could be watching this video far into the future. If you want this game, but would not be able to get it without piracy, message me on Twitter or via email, and I will buy it for you. I want to support the dev, so I'll do what I can. Alright, that just about concludes my Heart Fragments review, or at least Heart Fragments Book 1, not the whole thing. But I hope you enjoyed it. I really think it's a very engaging game, very interesting, very different from any Otome I ever played, to be honest with you. Book 2, Belief Fragments, and Book 3, Despair Fragments are set to come out sometime in the future, and I love to cover them, because I really like Book 1. What are your thoughts on this game? Do you think it's an interesting one? Is it one of your new favorite Otomes? It at least is mine, I know that much. Let me know in the comments what you think of it. I'd love to hear from you. If you enjoyed this video, consider you like and subscribing. I don't get any money from YouTube to do this because I don't have enough subscribers yet, and that would really help me out. If you really like it, I have a Patreon, patreon.com/Norviz. You can what I'm going to do next, get access to my scripts and early access to all of my videos, or even get a custom video essay if you want one. You know, all the good stuff. Alright, I'm Bez from Your Big Brother Plays, and I'll see you next time. Bye. I like experiences like Lone Survivor a lot, but also environmental horror like Firemental Freddy, Fire Elemental Freddy. Let's try that again, huh?